Joining me now to break down how the economy is reacting to recent events is business and market analyst Seth Denson. He's also the co-founder and chief strategist at GDP Advisors. So Seth, when we look at the economy right now, I know that we're coming out of a pandemic. I know that the stock market will be touted as being very well off right now, but really foundationally, how is the economy right now?
Well, I think to answer that, you have to recognize that the economy really has two positions. It has the market position, which, as you've already alluded to, is doing quite well. But then it has the actual everyday American small business sector, which is doing quite poorly during the pandemic, in large part due to government-controlled shutdowns. And so I think what we're seeing right now, at least in the short term, is the market reacting to what it assumes is going to be massive government spending under Democratic control, in the hopes that there are going to be some short-term gains to be made.
And of course, Wall Street, the one thing that they like is consistency. I think the best thing for Wall Street investors perhaps would have been a Biden presidency followed by a Republican-controlled Senate, just to make sure that everything kind of stays the same and that expansive spending doesn't really take place, because we know that Republicans would have been the Grim Reaper, as Mitch McConnell wants to call it, when it comes to progressive type of policy items. But now that we do look like we are going to have a Democratic-controlled Senate and the possibility of a Biden presidency going hand in hand with their agenda items, do you think that changes? Do you think that Wall Street's a little bit on edge?
Well, I think that there may be a little bit on edge. Again, I think there's two other things, though, that are going on here. One is there are some more moderate Democrats in the U.S. Senate who have come out. Joe Manchin, for example, sent him out of Arizona, who have said, hey, we're not going to adopt these radical policies that are going to have great impact on the economy long term. I think they're holding on to that. But here's the other thing that hasn't been talked about much. Wall Street knows Joe Biden. They've known him for years. They've got a 50-year track history of him, and quite frankly, they've invested heavily there. And I think that they're understanding that in the long term, they're going to be able to make good on that investment.
And we know that, for example, conservatives do have their concerns about Joe Biden. He has the infamous nickname now, Beijing Biden. And the Trump administration, for example, has taken a rather hardline approach when it comes to China, imposing tariffs, really kind of taking on that trade war a little bit more so than previous presidents. Do you suspect that that'll change under a Biden presidency? And if so, how would that change the markets or the economy?
Yeah, I do think it will change under a Biden presidency. I think, again, if we look at the history, the track history is that Biden has been relatively soft on China. And it's a shame, because we finally made some good headway in what we needed to do to regain some control. But I do assume that things are going to soften. I think that will have a short-term benefits for some of these trade commodities that were impacted by the trade war, and certainly some of these global stocks as well, as we start to think about second and third quarters of 2021.
And I'm glad you bring that up, because, of course, we are coming out of a pandemic, but that's not to say we're out of it just yet. In fact, cases are surging in places across the country. But one thing that is instilling a little bit of optimism for some people is the development of a coronavirus vaccine. We know that's started being distributed across the country, but we're still a long ways out from that return to normal, as the way that people put it. But do you think that, for example, Democrats putting out a $2,000 stimulus check, as they say they're going to do you think that's going to make a big difference moving forward? Or do you think that any difference was really in that last coronavirus relief package?
No, I personally don't think that the $2,000 is going to make a big difference. We didn't see a huge bump in the checks that were in the first round of stimulus. What I do think would make a difference is greater support for those sectors that we've shut down due to government stranglehold. And I think that the other thing that will happen, I think this could be a positive, is the CDC originally asked for $9 billion to get the vaccine distributed faster. And I think that could help. We need to get this vaccine into as many people as we can so we can get the economy going again.
And Seth, over the past 4 years, we've continued to be told about how strong the economy is, about how not only on Wall Street, that's one indicator, but really wages started going up too organically for the first time without the federal government making a minimum wage or anything like that. We also saw the unemployment rate go down to numbers that we haven't seen for a long time. So overall, a lot of people, even those who are critical of this administration, were saying that foundationally we were in a good place. Is that still the case, or did the coronavirus pandemic kind of throw that out the window?
No, I think that foundationally the economy is still in a good place. And again, if we look at the markets, we've surpassed any expectation, both pre and post pandemic. So I think that foundationally it's there. I do think that we got a long road ahead of us in the small business sector, getting that up and running again. There's a lot of small businesses that, quite frankly, will never come back. That's really a challenge going forward that I'm terrified about. We need a strong small business. But from a general economic perspective, the foundational structures that were put in place by the Trump administration, I think, will bode us well into the future.
Yeah, and I hope you're right, too, because I know right now there's a lot of struggling Americans out there who can't open up their small businesses, and they're really banking on the idea that coming out of this pandemic, they will be able to make up for those hardships. But to your point, I mean, a lot of people, for example, got that $600 stimulus check last week or 2 weeks ago, and really that just kind of covers their overdraft fees or really the rent that they still owe. I don't think that's going to go a long way in making sure that these people are once again brought whole. I think the strength of the economy moving forward will do a better job at doing that. But Seth Denson, it's always a pleasure having you on this program. Thanks for coming on tonight.
Thank you. Appreciate it.